it is good to see the market bouncing. But the primary question would be, can this lead towards a big run up? And for XRP, when you see a lot of CBDC projects getting onto Ether, you will ask that question like, okay, then what's the role of XRP? And then we also have to look at the price action because, yeah, that does matter. We are talking about a huge market, which is payments, and we are going to talk in detail about what's happening in the digital currency space for the central bank digital currencies, who is leading and what's happening. And as the crypto market bounces, keep this in mind. Stock market is trying to come back above one support, and if that happens, there is a possibility that it can be a double bottom at a time when the dollar is slowing down. So you see that the stock market is bouncing. It has some upside before it actually breaks that resistance. And the dollar is slowing down. With that, keep this. And see that when dollar goes down, XRP goes up. So if you look at this pattern and say like dollar is going to drop, keep this in mind, XRP is going to go high along with the crypto assets. But today's discussion will more lean towards this. You are observing MCBDC projects being successful. It just came out yesterday. They are doing this. A lot of different banks are joining together and they are working on this. But when they talk about this, they just highlight ERC20 network, the smart contracts, the Ether-based stuff. It does not end up in actual specifications of what is happening. So we need to look at that and ask like, okay, do we really hold on to XRP or it's done? So we really need to know what's the truth behind this, right? So what's an MCBDC, how things are evolving there, what's the role of XRP if there is something which is happening inside those networks. So let's dive deep. This is a scientific investor family where the normal, common retail guys learn how to become the world's next top 10%. Remember, as we go through this cycle, next 3 months, next 6 months, this statement will become true. A lot of you who are working closely to rebalance your portfolio, to manage your portfolio, are going to reach that level. Now, reaching top 10% is not a sky-high challenge. A lot of us, reach there in 2 to 3 years of hard work. You can do that. So now, the price is slowly bouncing up and we came towards 0.43. So if you remember in yesterday's video, we literally talked about this. This is trendline resistance, and as you broke this range, you may come down here. So what happens? The price then decides to come down there and bounce from there with a similar pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So your impulse was to the downside. So what we are definitely looking at is a move back up. Fine. So now we actually jump on towards what's happening here. The landmark international CBDC test is considered as a success. So now they did a transaction or a different transaction length towards 22 million. And this is involving China, Hong Kong, Thailand, UAE. And they completed this last month. So the BIS is actually giving you that highlight like, okay, they actually work together and they are going to come again. And this project is gonna known as M Bridge. So when you are looking at the M Bridge project, when you see like, okay, they did a total of 164 transactions, which is like, high value payments, it did work. Now, the actual question comes down to, okay, what technology did they use? What are the possibilities? So when you just see they are working on this and they are doing this, you don't actually get to see the big picture. But when you try to go in detail, you kind of see like, okay, the technical solutions inside this include the layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, in which the layer 2 is a back-end application. So you don't get to see that happening when you are at the both ends, say sending and receiving end, you don't get to see that. And when people actually talk about they are using Ether for smart contracts especially, they don't actually give you the settlement mechanism. Fine. So now the model one, now this is a little old one when they're joining and now they are completed this. So what you are looking at is like three different possibilities, three arrangements. In one, the enhanced compatibility, it shows you like the compatible technical and regulatory standards with overlapping participation. One. Next one, interlinking through shared technical interface. That's important. Third one can be run on a single platform. So both the second and third one, they give you better clarity. Now, it's not me saying this. You come here, you look at the Bank of International Settlements, and inside their video here, they give you further details. So it's like 10-20 seconds here and another 10-20 seconds at the end. So let's listen to it and you can create a judgment based on that.
MCBDC Bridge project, a co-creation initiative run in partnership with the BIS Innovation Hub and a growing number of central banks. In the MCBDC Bridge, participants directly engage with a single jointly controlled operator. The cost savings of such a system could be substantial. There would be no need for pre-funding or sustaining a correspondent relationship. And if such an MCBDC arrangement nests an FX conversion mechanism, essentially a cross-currency, cross-border transaction is the same as a domestic single currency transaction, and so should be the speed and the cost.
So from what we have just listened, it is clear that this is to bring different CBDC arrangements onto one single platform, technical interface, where it gives you the ability to do the forex rate, say whether it's from dollar to yen, yuan, euro, wherever, you need to switch. And it highlights the cost and transaction speed in terms of the benefit side, not like the legacy system, right? So it's like cheaper and it's faster. And it also serves you something like a domestic payment when you have this. So the switch is like this. It's so important to keep these in mind because in different documents, when you go through, say this is World Economic Forum, in one of their old documents highlighting, say for example, JPM coin and XRP for the wholesale CBDC projects. So what BEIS talks about the MCBDC and what they have conducted is big transaction, right? It's actually high value transactions. So it's a wholesale payments what they are talking about. And when you look at other stuff, which we are going to discuss, say this is from the Australian Central Bank. So the Aussie actually highlight like, okay, they are using ERC20 smart contract interface. You need to understand that. Smart contract, not settlement mechanism. Then when you actually go forward looking at, say, Bank of International Settlement and different projects, say this is Canada. They are looking at different types. It can be retail, it can be wholesale, it can be token based. A lot of different approaches which they are looking at. But as you go through this, one thing is for sure. Central bank digital currencies may help deliver better cross-border payments. But how? What are they looking at? They are clearly looking at something which can interact easily. That's the interoperability. Then the scalability challenges and the environmental sustainability. So when you talk about environmental sustainability, it's not just we are talking that, right? Here you look at this one and it's like, the World Bank. And when you are going through this and talking about different platforms giving you the ability to do different stuff, it comes down that they are presenting you something where they talk clearly about the Byzantine federated system. So this consensus mechanism is one of the best in terms of the energy consumption. One, and then we go back to the upside to see like what they are really talking about. They need a CBDC, and one side it's cash and the other side it's a card network. So one existing centralized money system, then the other side here in crypto at the bottom, when you're comparing that, it's the Bitcoin. Great. But in between lies the federated Byzantine algorithm. So now when you look at this and ask that question, okay, what are they really looking at? What are the governments talking about when they think about a central bank digital currency? So they have conducted a lot of different pilot programs in which the recent one, this is actually a little bit older year, but the recent one gives you even better understanding. Yes, XRP ledger is involved, but one thing to note here is there's a lot of different projects, but it's only one XRP and Ripple. Don't get confused and don't get me wrong. Whereas you see consensus again and again in a lot of different area, consensus quorum. Great. You see that day, and then you go to the upside, you see like R3 Coda, one with quorum, which is consensus, Ether. Then you go here, consensus quorum. Okay, I get that. Then again, you see Ether with R3 Coda. Then again, you see quorum, which is Ether with R3. So what really is happening here? Don't get confused. It's clear. This is that project which they've conducted on Project Dunbar. Wait, now don't, if I didn't highlight it, you may be confused. Like there are different projects which actually went through, one of which they used this technology from Ether, and R3 is this one, Project Dunbar. Now you have different projects, so you can actually go through that. All of them comes back to the same equation, where you have the coda as settler, and the base of that smart contract is Ether. Now, to get a bit more clarity, you can look at it like this. Say, this is the World Bank document where they give you the idea. Interledger is an open protocol. We all know that. And what's happening here is that it enables exchange of value across different payment networks. So using Interledger, the XRP can be sent to someone who want to receive Ether or USD, right? So one end you are sending Euro, the other end you are receiving JPY. In between, you can either put Ether or put XRP. So here, don't get confused on what they would be using, because what they want is fast transaction, cheap transaction, and highly scalable. Now, I'm not making this up. You go down and look what they have done. So party A, party B, and then they look at the interledger in between. So you can use Ether as settlement, and you know what happens. So that's the Ether testnet, and this is the XRP ledger testnet. So if the World Bank is doing this, what do you really think? Will they see the reality or they won't? For me, if you ask me, I'll say they are completely looking at this. Now, it's not only one. You see a lot of different stuff happening. So you actually go back here, listen to what they would like to actually give us in terms of the idea of where this is working or how this is going to work out.
On a wide range of CBDC designs, and the interoperability of these should not be taken as granted. We need to scope out the various possibilities in order to see which kind of arrangement makes sense from the perspective of technology, economics, and governance.
So again, it is clear that they are talking about three key stuff: the technology itself and primarily the governance model. And that is why when we actually talk about these, we come back to hit one system, which is, being highlighted, Byzantine system. So inside this, you have a lot more in terms of the governance. Now, I don't think central banks will actually go towards a route where they have a loose governance system, because they want control. Whether we agree or not, it's the politicians, it's the bureaucrats. They will never say like, okay, I'm not giving you other currencies to use when I have my own, right? Most likely they'll say, okay, this is my currency or the government's currency, the CBDC of our country. But I don't think they'll say like, okay, we have this, but you can use that. At least that's not what history suggests. Say, if you look back in the history, US had a time when it was hard or not allowed to buy gold. US citizens were not allowed to buy gold. So the government can put anything out there. So if they are going towards this route, saying, okay, we see this as a commodity, we see this as a bridge, go to that route because that's going to work. Now, as a commodity, they are looking at Bitcoin, they're at least saying it's a commodity. So if it's a digital gold, now I've seen Charles actually putting this question like, okay, so how does the mine work? Gold is a mine and this is also mined. So that should be on that note. Now, coming back onto this one, when we look at the pilot projects and what's happening there, you also keep that eye on the understanding like they are all using Coda Settler. So if you believe they are going to only use Ether as a settlement mechanism, then they don't actually need Coda. It's a notary system, but it's also a settlement system with different settlement assets. Yes, you have XRP and XDC as well. These are like, the payment tokens which are getting attention. But the difference here, what you have to highlight is, say, in South Korea, when they are looking at this, they are looking at an international one, consensus, great. And they are also giving a chance for Korean one, right? Whereas if you look at US, anything which is from US is being screwed. And a company which is based on Swiss is being given opportunities, given green light. So that's a little bit of conflicting ideology there, but you have to keep that in mind. Things will get tough as we see a lot of changes happening around in the economy. So now, as we move forward, there's another one from Hedra.com. So here you are looking at different DLT networks available for the CBDCs. So you have from Ripple, you have from Coda, you have from Hedra, and a lot of others. Here, especially when you look at this was actually intriguing to me. And I'm like, okay, previously I thought it was 1,500 online and then offline around 60,000. But here on this one, I'm observing like 10,000, depending on the network and the topology, of course, but 10,000. Whereas Stellar can also do 1,000 to 10,000. One is the public one. So you're not talking about the ordinary or the general XRP ledger. You're talking about a side chain of the XRP ledger where it's private and permissioned. So whatever they are using now is this range here, the private and permission. Whatever we just saw, like the Hyperledger Fabric, R3 Coda, going back in the document, you will realize whenever they talk about what they are using, they are looking at something like this, or they built something which is private. So central banks need the control and privacy, and directly on XRP ledger, it's hard to keep that privacy. That's why they use the side chain of XRP. Now, it doesn't mean there you have a different XRP and a different value. You have a different side chain, but the XRP itself, which runs on the XRP ledger, is the same. You don't have a different one. Great. Now, when you look at this, they have started the side chain recently compared to, Coda or Hyperledger. That's why you don't get more here. And there's a lot of non-disclosure agreements, which who knows when it's going to end. But hopefully this November in the swell, even they announce something more. We don't know what they're going to announce. It will be just pure speculation from our end. At least we get a couple more central banks there, right? So Stellar is here in Ukraine. Ripple, Bhutan, and Palau, not the big economies which we really want to see, but it is still happening slowly. So when you come back to the JP Morgan stuff, now understand this is JP Morgan, right? So it's not that completely favorable guys who want crypto to grow. Fine. So when they give you something like this, you need to understand, you need to take it a little bit cautious and understand what their perspective is. So when they talk about central bank initiatives, they know what's happening inside the industry. Agreed? They give you Swift, what they are doing with the GPI, the Ford Model T being put on the Ferrari body, that kind of stuff. And then the CLS here, a multi-currency FX net. And then Finality. So you have another one which we are familiar with. And then Ripple. But they are showing you for the low cost, that's where I'm totally confused. They're giving you, it's not that low cost. Whereas on the instant settlement time, it gets the full point. It's instant. Great, we agree. Transparency, remember this. Transparency, they give Ripple less point than the GPI, and I'm scratching my head. Have you ever tried going to a bank and sending money to different country, remitting? Try that and get that experience. Because here they give Swift and Ripple same charges. And I'm like, they are nuts. Because personally, I went to a bank and sent money to India from Korea. Say if you're sending $1,000, they're charging you $80 to $90. And you don't get the exact $1,000 at the other end. That's one. And it may take 1 to 2 days or sometimes 3 days. Great. So that's Swift. Now you look at something which is running on Ripple. SendB, G-Money, Cross, a lot of them. You use that, the charge is like $2, which is absolutely stunning considering we are paying the same amount you're sending is being sent in 5 to 10 minutes. It reaches there and the charge is only $2 where I'm paying the bank $80. So here it's clear that they are just trying to degrade Ripple because practical experience for me, you and others who have already used the system knows what it is. And then they give the misinformation. And this really is that idiotic stuff. When they actually themselves highlight the settlement is instant and give it full points, the instant settlement, boom, it goes through. And they say the volatility is high using XRP. I'm like, even if the volatility is sky high, which it is not, we all want it to go sky high, but yeah, it's not. Then the settlement happens in 3 to 5 seconds. So you really don't have much volatility because Brad already gave this on stage. Volatility is the multiplication of your movement and the time. So it happens when the time is shorter, you don't really have that much volatility. Whereas in Swift, when they take 2 to 3 days with the current atmosphere where the dollar is, moving up, down, and the currency pairs are getting slashed, kicked, you don't really want to be in that range, right? So now one thing which you want to understand is they are putting Ripple inside this, where inside the 3 target stages, for the transparency, you get around 90%, say 75%. Here you get full. On the side of this one, it's completely bullshit because we all know how the system works. Now, inside this, they actually went through this and they go here, talk about Project Dunbar, the MCBDC platform. You get that? A highly integrated international collaboration where it's at a scale, things are happening. So when you go back to the MCBDC, you see backend application, the technical interface. We just listen to how things work there. So now we have an idea of what really is happening inside that. It can be a side chain of XRP ledger. It can be, something else, who knows? But the possibility of it running on interledger is super high in my opinion. If I'm looking at this and asking that, okay, they are already doing this. It's the World Bank giving you the stuff of how things are moving. I wouldn't actually go against that. And then the price, the volatility, the adoption. So for the adoption side, this is actually important. When you actually read this, you are like, okay, I'm confused. But, this is kind of a little bit clear. When the Hitman itself gave us that idea or that theory where the assets that function solely as a means of exchange in a decentralized network are not a security. So XRP Ledger is a decentralized system compared to Bitcoin or Ether. The validators is like 6 or 7% from Ripple and, it's distributed. Great. And it serves a purpose, which is a means of exchange. It's not only that we are saying that. You go look at the central bank approaches for money movement, the means of exchange, and they give you that name here. They say it's volatile. They say it's, relatively high cost due to the spread between fiat and XRP. And I'm like, which exchange are you using? Look at Binance. You don't really have much of spread. So when you consider the spread, 2% at the one end and another one, it's 4%. But when the banks do these stuff, you're not going to the exchanges where it's so high. You're going for 0.2%. So it's like 1% total for your fee or 2. Not the 8 to 9% which the banks charge you. Now the banks, when they put this one, they have to show this because they stay on top of that money chain where they get to take the most fees. Let it be JP Morgan, Citibanks. When you are sending money across the border, these are the banks who sit at the top and loot them, take the money, right? So they will have to put this one so that they have the benefit in future. Now they're going to get disrupted for sure. They are already getting that. So guys, here you are getting that idea that it is changing, the world is changing, the adoption is on our side. But what we all want to see is the price action, and we don't want to miss what's happening in the market. So as you go look at the market, you see market slowly trying to bounce, you see green numbers here and there. It's all good, it's all great. And when we look at these are like, okay, we are getting volume here, we are getting volume there. From the large cap to small cap, as you move, you do get to see more volatility. So if your risk tolerance is higher, you are looking for assets with a lower market cap, but you should also understand the project. You should also look at the daily volume. If the daily volume is too low, say here there is a lot of fluctuation, but you don't have much of a volume. Whereas in this one, say it is getting a lot of volume. So there is a lot of volatility, but you also get to see a lot of volume coming in. So you get to buy and sell when you're in profit. So you need to make sure as you go through how the market moves and you get to take the benefits. So here, say for example, this is XRP, and this one we talked about is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin right now on a short term is showing you that it is trying to actually create a round bottom, and that can possibly be a double bottom. And as we zoom out, this happens to be a range of support which has been there from 2-3 months. So we are looking at this support and asking that question, can this hold the last all-time highs, that range? It is trying to support us. So what we are looking at is whether the indicators give you an idea saying, okay, we are trying to break higher. We tried last time, we failed. So we want to see whether this try is successful. If it is, you are going to see Bitcoin slowly bouncing up. All kinds slow down, but they are also going to move up with Bitcoin. So when you look at that, it is like XRP to Bitcoin. You broke higher, you are there. So when Bitcoin goes up, you are slow here, even though you are moving up in dollar terms. And then when Bitcoin slows down is when you actually see a major upside. So in terms of the support resistance, you are looking for this to come back and retest this range of support and then bounce from here. That's going to be something great. So now, yes, the market is volatile and you are going through this one. But if you have managed to be in this market for this long, you already know how important patience is, and you already know how important it is to be in assets which will stay. Because there are assets which are getting wiped out, they are going bankrupt, a lot of it. So if it's like 1% of your portfolio, you don't care. But if it's 90% of your portfolio getting wiped out, you are kind of done. You have to start it from the scratch. It's going to be really hard. Great. So if you are looking for that kind of updates on different assets which is bursting, some of them are really looking interesting, breaking out through a long-term pattern, which suggests next 3-6 months is going to be great in those assets. If you want to have a look at those, look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. So guys, if you received value till now, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.